All right, so ready to dive into some tips for job interviews, specifically how to totally rock those interviews when you're doing them in English.
Okay.
And we're pulling some insights from a podcast called The Speak Easy, which is all about, well, speaking easy, especially if English isn't your native language.
Yeah, they had some really good advice.
Totally. So, what really stood out to me was their emphasis on research before you even walk into that interview room. Like going deeper than just glancing at the company's website.
Oh, yeah, they really went beyond the usual check the website advice.
Right. It's more like really understanding what the company does, not just like their mission statement or whatever, but the actual nitty-gritty of their work and their impact.
For sure. I mean, think about it. If you were interviewing someone, wouldn't you be way more impressed if they showed they really understood what your work was all about?
Totally.
Like showing them you're genuinely interested, not just, reciting facts from their About Us page.
Right, right. So it's less about like flattering them and more about showing you can connect the dots. Like, how does this company fit into the bigger picture of their industry? What are some of the challenges they're facing? That kind of thing.
You got it. And doing that kind of research can also help you come up with some really good questions to ask at the end of the interview, which I know can be tough.
Oh man, tell me about it. That's always the part where I like totally blank and end up asking about the office coffee situation or something equally lame.
Well, the Speakeasy actually had some suggestions for that.
Yeah.
Like they recommended asking questions like, what are some of the biggest challenges you see in this role? Or can you tell me a little bit about the team I would be working with?
Okay.
Yeah, questions that show you're thinking about the day-to-day reality of the job, not just, the paycheck.
Right, right. It's like you're showing them you're not just there to fill a seat, you actually want to contribute and be part of the team.
Exactly. That genuine curiosity can really make you stand out.
I can see that.
Now, of course, you'll also want to practice answering those classic interview questions, the ones that come up all the time.
Ugh. Yeah, you mean like the dreaded tell me about yourself prompt?
Get that one.
It feels like such a trap. I'm never sure if they want like my whole life story or what.
The Source podcast, the Speakeasy, they suggested kind of thinking of it like a highlight reel of your relevant experience and skills.
Okay.
They even gave an example response. I have 5 years of experience in marketing, and I specialize in digital advertising. I'm passionate about creating engaging content and helping brands grow.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty concise and to the point.
Right.
But I also feel like doesn't that sound kind of generic? How do I make it, specific to me?
Well, that's just a template, right?
Okay.
The Speakeasy really stresses that you need to tailor it to your own unique background and skills. Like, what are you really good at? What accomplishments are you most proud of? Weave those things in.
Gotcha. So it's about finding that sweet spot between like structure and authenticity. I can see how that would be more engaging for the interviewer too.
For sure. It shows you've really thought about it, and that shows initiative and self-awareness.
Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling less scared of that one now. But what about the strengths and weaknesses question? That one always throws me off.
Ah, yes, that's a classic. Well, the Speakeasy had a pretty interesting suggestion for this one. They said you should try to back up your strengths with concrete examples from your experience and then kind of reframe your weaknesses as opportunities for growth.
Okay, can you give me an example of what that would sound like in an actual interview?
Yeah, so they offered this. One of my strengths is my ability to work under pressure. In my last job, I managed multiple projects with tight deadlines. As for a weakness, I used to struggle with public speaking, but I've been taking courses to improve my confidence.
Oh, okay. I see what they did there.
Right.
Instead of just saying, I'm a hard worker, they gave proof. And even the weakness is presented like in a positive light.
Yeah, it shows self-awareness and a desire to learn and grow, which are great qualities to have. Who wouldn't want that on their team?
Okay, that's brilliant. I'm totally using that one.
Hmm.
So we've covered research, practicing common questions. What else can help us really nail these interviews when we're doing them in English?
Well, the Speakeasy talked a lot about the power of genuine enthusiasm, like really showing that you want to be at this company doing this job.
So it's more than just like meeting a paycheck.
Exactly. Think about when they asked, why do you want to work here? They suggested saying something like, I really admire your company's commitment to innovation and customer satisfaction. I believe my skills in customer service align well with your mission, and I would be thrilled to be part of your team.
Okay. But how do you walk that line between, like, being sincere and just saying what you think they want to hear?
Well, that's where your research comes back in, right?
Okay, yeah.
You can mention specific projects of theirs that you found interesting or connect their work to your own passions.
I see. So it's about showing you've done your homework. You actually get what they're all about.
Exactly. And that kind of passion can be really contagious. It can make you memorable.
Okay, I like that. So we've got the prep work, we've got the practice questions, we've got the genuine enthusiasm. Anything else we need to cover?
The Speakeasy had a whole bunch of useful English phrases that can help boost your confidence and make you sound more fluent, even if you're nervous.
Ooh, okay. Hit me with some of those. I'm always looking for ways to, like, up my language game, especially in these kind of high pressure situations.
Well, they had phrases for expressing confidence, like, I believe I would be a great fit for this role because. They also had phrases to buy you some thinking time, like, that's a great question. Let me take a moment to think about that.
Oh, those are lifesavers. I hate that awkward silence when my brain freezes up.
Right. And then, of course, they had phrases for ending the interview politely and professionally.
Makes sense, yeah. You don't want to just mumble and run out the door.
Exactly. So the Speakeasy suggested things like, thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. Or, I appreciate the opportunity to interview for this position.
So it's like having those tools ready to go, both in terms of content and delivery. I'm actually feeling way more confident already, and we haven't even gotten to practice part yet.
Practice is key, for sure. But there was one other thing that the Speakeasy touched on that I think we need to unpack a bit further.
Ooh, intrigue. Tell me more.
They briefly mentioned company culture, but I think it deserves a deeper dive of its own.
Okay.
Because it's not just about getting the job right. It's about finding a workplace where you can actually thrive.
I'm totally on board with that because, a company can sound amazing on paper, but if the culture's toxic, no amount of interview prep is going to save you.
Exactly. So how do we go beyond the surface and really get a sense of what it's like to work somewhere? That's the question we'll be tackling in our next segment. Stay tuned. We were talking about those English phrases that can really help in an interview.
Yeah.
The Speakeasy made a good point. They said it's not enough to just know the phrases. You really got to practice using them. So you're comfortable saying them in the moment.
You mean like actually saying them out loud, not just like reading them over in my head?
Exactly. Think of it like learning a song. You wouldn't just read the sheet music, right?
Yes.
You'd actually sing it.
Okay.
Practice makes it flow naturally.
So I shouldn't just be memorizing these phrases like flashcards. I should actually be like getting comfortable saying them so they don't sound, all robotic in the actual interview.
Exactly. It helps with your pronunciation, your rhythm, and even just like the subtle intonation that conveys confidence. You want to sound natural, not like you're reading from a script.
This kind of reminds me of when I have to like give a presentation or something. The more I rehearse it, the less I have to think about the words, and I can really focus on connecting with the audience.
That's a great analogy. It's the same idea with job interviews.
Hmm.
You're more free to really showcase your skills and your personality when you're not like stuck in your head worrying about the language.
Okay, I'm sold on the practice part. But what about those times when, you do stumble over a word or you totally blank?
That happens. Happens to everyone, even native English speakers.
Okay, good.
The important thing is not to let it derail you. Remember those thinking time phrases we talked about?
Right.
The Speakeasy really emphasized how useful those can be in those moments.
Like, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a second.
Exactly. It buys you a little time without creating this, awkward silence.
Yeah.
And it shows that you're composed, which is always a good quality in a candidate.
It's like having a safety net.
Yeah.
You can stumble a little, but you're not going to fall flat on your face.
Totally. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about company culture.
Yeah.
The Speakeasy mentioned this, but I think it deserves a deeper dive.
Yeah, you're right. A company can look amazing, on their website or whatever, but what's it actually like to work there?
Right, like they might talk about teamwork and innovation and all that, but how does that play out in reality? Do people actually collaborate? Are new ideas encouraged?
These are things you can't really get from just reading a job description, right?
Exactly.
It's more about the vibe, the unspoken rules, the overall environment.
And that's why it's so important to go beyond the official company line and do some digging. The Speakeasy actually suggested talking to people who already work there, which I think is a great idea.
Okay, but how do you do that without being creepy or intrusive? I mean, you can't just cold call random employees.
Oh, no, of course not. But there are ways to do it,
Yeah.
respectfully and effectively. One of my favorite tools is LinkedIn. You can search for people who work at the company. You can see their profiles, and you can even connect with them directly.
So it's kind of like a virtual networking event.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it can feel a lot less intimidating than like approaching someone in person.
For sure.
You can send a message expressing your interest in the company and just politely ask if they'd be willing to share some insights on the work environment.
Would something like, hey, I'm really impressed by the work your company is doing, and I'm thinking about applying for a position. Would you be open to chatting for a few minutes about your experience there? Would that work?
That's a great start. People are usually happy to help, especially if they, like working at their company.
Yeah.
And even if they don't have time for a call, they might answer a few questions over email.
Okay, that's really helpful. I always thought that, like, reaching out to employees directly was kind of off the limits.
No, not at all. It shows initiative, and it shows that you're really trying to understand the company on a deeper level.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, another resource that the Speakeasy mentioned was company review sites, like Glassdoor.
Oh, yeah, those can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like they can be kind of skewed, Not everyone leaves reviews, and the people who do might have, like, really strong opinions, whether positive or negative.
You're right. It's definitely important to approach those reviews with a critical eye.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just focus on the star ratings.
Right.
Actually read the comments. What are some of the recurring themes? What are people consistently praising or criticizing?
So it's about looking for patterns, not taking any single review as, like, the absolute truth.
Exactly. You're trying to get a sense of the overall vibe. Do a lot of reviews mention a supportive team environment? That's a good sign. But if you see multiple people complaining about micromanagement or a lack of work-life balance, that's something to pay attention to.
This actually reminds me of how I choose restaurants.
Oh, yeah?
I don't just look at the overall rating. I actually, like, scan the reviews for specific things that are important to me, like vegetarian options or outdoor seating, you know?
I love that. It's like you're tailoring your research to your own needs and priorities. Now, there's one more resource for figuring out company culture that we shouldn't overlook.
Let me guess. The interview itself.
You got it. Remember, the interview isn't just about them evaluating you. It's also a chance for you to evaluate them.
Okay.
Pay attention to how they interact with you, their body language, their tone of voice. Do they seem, genuine and enthusiastic, or do they seem like stressed or disengaged?
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes in interviews you can just, like, feel the energy of the place. Even if they're saying all the right things, there's this underlying vibe that tells a different story.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions that really dig into their culture. Like, instead of just asking about their core values, try something like, can you give me an example of how those values are actually put into practice in your daily work?
Oh, that's good. It forces them to go beyond the generic answer.
Right. Or if they talk about how important teamwork is, ask them to tell you about a time when the team faced a challenge and how they worked together to overcome it.
So it's about asking questions that reveal the behind-the-scenes reality, not just the polished presentation.
Exactly. It's about gathering information and making sure that this company is truly aligned with your values and goals.
I like that. I'm starting to see the interview less as a test and more like, a two-way conversation.
That's a great way to think about it. It takes some of the pressure off, right?
Yeah,
And it lets you approach the whole process with more confidence and curiosity.
definitely.
Speaking of confidence, the Speakeasy also had some good tips on how to project confidence through your body language and communication style, which I think is really interesting.
Ooh, I'm all ears. I know people always say nonverbal cues are so important.
They are. And we'll be exploring those in our next segment. Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back, and I'm ready to talk about projecting confidence. I feel like this is something a lot of people, myself included, really struggle with, especially in, like, high-pressure situations like job interviews.
Oh, for sure. It can be super nerve-wracking.
Totally.
The Speakeasy actually had some really interesting points about how confidence isn't just about what you say, but how you say it.
You mean like our body language and stuff?
Exactly. Nonverbal cues, they can be just as important, if not more important, than your words.
I've heard that.
Yeah, they actually make up the majority of communication. The Speakeasy talked about how even simple things like making eye contact, sitting up straight, using hand gestures, all those things can really convey confidence and engagement.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like, I definitely feel more confident when I stand up straight and make eye contact, but sometimes I just get so nervous that I want to, like, shrink into my chair.
I think we've all been there, but practicing beforehand can really help with that.
Oh,
Like, you could try recording yourself answering some common interview questions and then watch it back
yeah.
and pay attention to your posture and body language. See if you notice any nervous habits.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, like I probably fidget a lot or like look away too much when I'm nervous.
Exactly. And then once you know what those habits are, you can start consciously working on, projecting a more confident image.
Okay.
Because remember, interviewers, they're not just looking for someone who has the skills, they're also looking for someone who has the presence and composure
Uh-huh.
to, really succeed in the role.
So it's not about like faking confidence. It's more about like presenting the best and most confident version of yourself.
Exactly. And the speakeasy also talked about the importance of vocal projection.
Hmm.
Speaking clearly and at a good pace can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
Oh, yeah. I know when I'm nervous, I tend to talk really fast or just mumble my words.
That's a super common reaction to
Mhm.
stress. But by slowing down and enunciating clearly, you'll come across as more confident and articulate. It also gives the interviewer time to actually process what you're saying.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So it's like being mindful not only of what we're saying, but how we're saying it. It's about using our voice and body language as tools to reinforce our message.
Exactly. It's about projecting this image of, competence and self-assurance, even if you're feeling a little nervous on the inside.
I like that. This is really helpful. I feel like we've covered so much in this deep dive. We went from pre-interview research to nailing those tricky interview questions to understanding company culture. And now we're talking about projecting confidence.
We have covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But before we wrap up, there was one last point that the speakeasy made that I thought was really important.
Okay. What is that?
It's just to remember that you have valuable skills and experience to offer. You've earned your place at the table, so try to approach the interview with a sense of self-worth. You deserve to be there.
Oh, that's such a good reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in like the pressure and the nerves and forget that we're not just, begging for a job. We're professionals with unique talents and perspectives.
Exactly. So go into that interview knowing your worth. Showcase your skills with confidence, and don't be afraid to ask questions that help you decide if the company is the right fit for you.
That's a great point. It's about like shifting the power dynamic a little bit, recognizing that it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. It's a chance for both sides to assess compatibility and see if it's a good fit.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. Well, to our listeners who are prepping for job interviews in English, remember, do your research, practice those answers, project that confidence, and test your instincts.
And don't forget, you have so much to offer. You got this.
This was a really, really insightful deep dive.
It was, wasn't it?
I hope our listeners feel empowered to tackle those interviews head on.
Really?
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into acing those job interviews in English. And to all our listeners out there, best of luck with your job search. We'll see you next time.